The PDPM cognitive level is utilized in the speech therapy payment component of PDPM. Determining the presence of cognitive impairment will help determine one of 5 conditions that impact the patient's speech therapy case mix group. One of 4 PDPM cognitive performance levels is assigned based on the Brief Interview for Mental Status, BIMS, or the Staff Assessment for Mental Status. Under PDPM, just as under RUGS 4, a patient's cognitive status is assessed using the Brief Interview for Mental Status, or BIMS. In cases where the BIMS cannot be completed, a Staff Assessment for Mental Status is completed. The BIMS is a brief screener that aids in detecting cognitive impairment. It does not assess all possible aspects of cognitive impairment. Repetition of 3 words. The inability to repeat 3 words on first attempt may indicate a hearing impairment, language barrier, or inattention that may be a sign of delirium. Temporal orientation. A lack of temporal orientation may lead to decreased communication or participation in activities. Not being oriented may be frustrating or frightening. Recall. Many persons with cognitive impairment can be helped to recall if provided cues. Providing memory cues can help maximize individual function and decrease frustration for those residents who respond. If the resident chooses not to participate in the BIMS, or if 4 or more items were coded 0 because the resident chose not to answer or gave nonsensical response, a score of 99 will be entered into the MDS section C0500. The assessor will then perform the Staff Assessment for Mental Status. Staff Assessment for Mental Status. Short-term memory. A resident's short-term memory status can be assessed by asking him or her to describe an event 5 minutes after it occurred, or to follow through on a direction given 5 minutes earlier. Long-term memory. A resident's long-term memory status can be assessed by engaging in conversation, reviewing memorabilia with the resident, or observing response to family who visit. Memory and recall ability. A resident's memory and recall ability can be assessed by asking the resident about each item in C900 of the MDS. For example, what is the current season? Is it fall, winter, spring, or summer? What is the name of this place? If the resident is not in his or her room, ask, "Will you show me to your room?" Observe the resident's ability to find the way. Cognitive skills for daily decision making. The intent of this item is to record what the resident is doing. Focus on whether or not the resident is actively making these decisions and not whether the staff believes the resident might be capable of doing so. Focus on the resident's actual performance. Where a staff member takes decision-making responsibility away from the resident regarding tasks of everyday living, or the resident does not participate in decision-making. Whatever his or her level of capability may be, the resident should be coded as impaired performance in decision-making. The Cognitive Performance Scale, or CPS, is used to score the patient based on the responses to the Staff Assessment for Mental Status. The new PDPM cognitive score is based on the Cognitive Function Scale, or CFS. The CFS was developed as a tool to define all residents' cognitive functional status in the nursing home setting. Staff will administer either the BIMS or Staff Assessment for Mental Status to the patient. The resident will then be assigned one of 4 cognitive levels on the Cognitive Function Scale based on the results of the cognitive assessment selected. If the PDPM cognitive level is cognitively intact, then the patient is not scored as having a cognitive impairment. Otherwise, if the patient is assessed as mildly, moderately, or severely impaired, then the patient classifies as cognitively impaired. The presence or absence of a cognitive impairment will help determine the speech therapy component of PDPM. If neither the BIMS nor the staff assessment for the PDPM cognitive level is complete, then the PDPM cognitive level cannot be assigned and the PDPM speech therapy case mix group cannot be determined. Key cognition components. PDPM cognitive level is utilized in the speech therapy payment component of PDPM. BIMS and staff assessment for mental status are used to assess the patient's cognitive level for PDPM. Cognitive Performance Scale, or CPS, is used to score the staff assessment for mental status. Cognitive Function Scale, CFS, combines scores from the BIMS and staff assessment for mental status into one scale. Speech therapy case mix cannot be determined if the BIMS or staff assessment for mental status are not completed.